This episode of Chaos Lever is brought to you by Integra One and their OneCon conference coming this October to Bethlehem, PA. More on that later, right?
Listen, I saw this documentary called Back to the Future, which had a lot of interesting ideas. I'm not writing off any possibilities, is all I'm saying.
Okay, so Back to the Future 2. A lot of inventions, a lot of interesting ideas on what the future would look like. A lot of ties, like way too many ties.
I mean, we could say that about now.
Still too many ties. If there's one major innovation that you could have from that movie, what would that innovation be?
Well, when I was of a certain age, it was 100% the hoverboards.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
of course.
that was it. And now that I'm older, wiser, more careful, more circumspect, it's still fucking hoverboards.
Hello, alleged human, and welcome to the Chaos Lever podcast. My name is Ned, and I'm definitely not a robot because I can spell strawberry with 3 R's. Imagine that. And if that doesn't make any sense, it's because you didn't listen to our tech news of the week. So go back and do that first, and then listen to this one because that's what's important. With me is Chris, who is also here. Hi, Chris.
What's a strawberry?
Doesn't matter, but I know it has 3 R's.
Well, that's really all we need to know. Is there any point to the rest of the show?
Not that I can think. Well, we might want to dig into how many R's a raspberry has, because that's a totally separate question.
There's none. It's spelled.
I see what you did there. Oh, you're funny. You're a funny guy.
You see what happens when we record and it's not 6 o'clock in the morning?
You have all the humor, and I am like barely clinging on.
Which is the way it should be.
You know, the fact that you're stomping on my fingers as I hang on to the cliff. I want you to know that I appreciate you and everything that you do.
I love it when you lie to me.
It's another day ending in Y. Really, that is the bedrock of our entire relationship is just
the calendar.
Oh, well, that too. Gregorian, naturally, because I don't go in for that Sumerian stuff.
I'm going French Revolution.
Ooh, the metric day. I love it.
It was crazy enough to work. Unlike Napoleon.
Wow, sick 200-year-old burn. Well done.
Got him.
Eventually. Oh, should we talk about some actual tech garbage?
Yeah. And this is going to be actual tech garbage.
No, it's not. Lies and slander. I said slies and lander. I kind of like that better.
Which could be a great indie pop band.
Probably already is.
Yeah. No, what we would like to talk about today is the movie Hackers, which
Yay!
I watched, so you don't have to.
But you should.
But yeah. TLDR, you totally should. Should it hold up? No. Does it hold up? Mostly. But anyway, to barely tie this to reality in some meaningful fashion, Wednesday of this week, the 18th, was National Civic Hacking Day. So close enough.
I mean, those poor Honda Civics, they never knew it hit them.
Out.
You wanted to record later in the day. This is what you get.
Anyway, since it was National Civic Hacking Day and I didn't feel like doing any actual work, I watched the movie Hackers instead.
Well done.
And like we said at the top there, I'm not going to be too hard on it. Really, it's not that bad of a movie. Hackers, released in 1995 and starring, let's face it, Angelina Jolie and some other people.
Hey.
Deal with
Johnny Lee Walker, right? That's his name? I think I'm close.
Johnny Lee Miller.
I was close.
Just proved my point.
Damn it.
Anyway, the movie is about a group of high school-aged hackers who get themselves into and out of all kinds of trouble, shenanigans. There's some tomfoolery. all
How
while
dare they?
listening to, frankly, a killer soundtrack
Yeah.
and just rocking all over New York City, totally unencumbered by people or police on rollerblades, which, believe me, now and then is not something you can do.
True, but I mean, it's more likely than actually having a car chase through New York City, which seems to happen on a regular basis if you believe action movies.
True, but this show is not about live free and die hard. So
Hmm.
stick to rollerblades.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, I'm sure you wear 12 sets of pads and still fall down.
Constantly. I see a twig ahead of me and I'm like, I'm going down, people.
Now, this is actually pretty funny because I did see this movie when it came out, and I probably have not seen it since then
Wow.
or close to then. And I rewatched it 2 nights ago or last night. I can't remember now. It's all a blur.
Hmm.
Um, and here's a fun fact. As you said, the lead actor in the movie is, in fact, Johnny Lee Miller. In my memory, it was Matthew Lillard.
Wow.
Now, Matthew
Very different.
Lillard is very much in the movie,
Yes.
but he is not the lead. So, shame on me, I guess.
I guess. Had Scream come out yet at that point? Because I feel like
I don't
that's
think
what
so.
really cemented him.
I think this was before
No.
Scream.
1996 was Scream. So this was
Yeah.
right before his big break.
Right. But anyway, there's other people in the movie too. It's not really important. This isn't a movie podcast.
Yet.
Since it is a technology podcast, I thought I would go through my thoughts upon rewatching it. Now, I did not actually write these while the movie was going on. It was maybe 30 to 45 minutes after. I needed a
Okay.
sandwich. I needed to contemplate. You know how it is.
I do.
I will say, at least they didn't say like the net or anything stupid like that. But let's just say there are some problems with this movie from a technical perspective in terms of what could really happen and how would it really happen and how does it actually relate to the real world, which is the one that we live in that doesn't have hoverboards. Thank you for reminding me earlier.
I want to point out that also released in 1995 was The Net, starring Sandra Bullock. And out of the two movies, this one is slightly more accurate.
I accept that as fact, and I don't think we ever need to speak about the net ever again.
Okay, well that's what we're watching for movie night in a week, so my apologies now.
Heaven help me.
I'm bringing Rice Krispie treats.
They better be chocolate frosted.
Is there any other kind? Moving on.
Anyway, so yeah, that's what we're going to do. And I should not have to say this, considering, as we said, Hackers came out in 1995. Spoilers ahead.
It's been 30 years, people, or close enough.
Don't remind me. I'm still
Mhm.
upset about the calendar.
Yes.
So without further ado, here are some fun facts and some real life breakdowns of the hacking and or hacking world, environment, what have you, milieu
Mm-hmm.
that sets the stage and takes place in this movie. Now, I have 7. You might have more. If there's time, we'll listen to them. They're probably not as important as mine.
Almost definitely.
So, number 1 is one that I absolutely did not know, and I was shocked to find out. Emmanuel Goldstein of 2600 magazine fame was a technical consultant on this movie.
Who what?
2600 is a magazine and a website that existed back then and is still around today, and is basically the go-to reading material for the electronically inclined breaker and enterer. The hacking underground, as it were, has a zine, and it's called 2600.
I see. Okay.
And it's awesome. I recommend you read it. You're not going to get on another list.
I'm on enough already. Doesn't matter.
Funnily enough, Emmanuel Goldstein is not his real name. It's an interesting nom de plume to sound like, a real name. The name, I think, came from 1984. I forget now. But anyway, as is tradition with people of that kind of expertise in their craft and skills in their area that go into helping a movie become right, quote unquote. He went in with the best of intentions, and most of what he tried to contribute was immediately thrown out in the name of 90s movie making. Still, there are little touches that show his influence. The biggest one is that Matthew Lillard's character is in fact named Emmanuel Goldstein.
Oh.
It's only mentioned once. It goes by real fast, but that's his real name in the movie. Also, you'll see the magazine, 2600, all over the place. The fun and cool kids are reading it. They reference stuff and language that comes out of it, etc. And sadly, when it comes to the technical accuracy, that's about as far as we go. When this movie came out, hackers were not pleased with it because of the movie's inaccuracies. And hilariously, the movie was released and part of its marketing was a website.
Oh.
Which was actually kind of a new thing at the time.
Yeah.
I don't think people remember 1995.
Not fondly.
But anyway, they created a website, and actual hackers, the ones that know how to do things, broke into said website over and over and over again and defaced it so many times that the studio eventually just took it offline.
Awesome. No notes. Well done.
I found that very, very funny. I actually tried to look up what that might have looked like, but unfortunately, the Internet Archive did not exist at the time.
That is a shame.
I will remind everyone, 1995. Number 2, reverse hacking a computer is an absolute absurdity. Now, I'm not going to highlight every single technical thing that goes wrong with this movie, and I'm also not going to go by scene. But I think this one sets the stage for what we can expect in terms of technical acumen.
Sure.
There is a scene, I want to say 15, 20 minutes into the movie. Johnny Lee Miller is hacking a TV station because he wants to watch The Outer Limits. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, it's before the era of Netflix or even DVDs, really.
He somehow gets into a hacker war with Angelina Jolie's character because she's there for some reason.
Just hanging out.
Not actually doing anything, but she's just there like you do. Anyway, what happens then is a bunch of graphical messages thrown up on each other's respective screens that they're typing on, implying that there's some type of direct communication from Jolie's computer to Miller's computer. Remember, they're connected to a third-party network. This is absolutely not how it works.
No.
A connection into a system like that using a modem directly connects from one computer to another. And that's as far as it goes, and that's the direction that the traffic passes through. You cannot just climb back up the pipe. You just can't.
Right.
The protocols simply don't allow it. Like, I don't have a more technical breakdown as to why. It's just, you just can't. Just like the same reason you can't have cupcakes before bed. You just can't. Actually, that might not have been the best metaphor.
No.
I know this one in particular was done for narrative purposes, but everything about the scene from a technical perspective is completely wrong. In the real world, when you do a login like this, first of all, there's no graphics.
No.
It is a command line access only. You don't fly around, and this goes for the rest of the movie, you just don't fly around visual mock-ups of what the computer system looks like.
You can't even do that now.
You don't need a headset. None of this, everything about this is dumb. This is almost as dumb as it was in Jurassic Park. If you remember that scene where Lex was navigating around the park after she famously said, "This is Unix. I know this."
It's wild that a 9-year-old would know Unix, because where the fuck would she encounter Unix as a 9-year-old?
Unix school? Pretty sure that's the thing. No, in Jurassic Park, what Lex was actually doing was navigating the file system using a piece of software that came as a demo on an SGI system that showed off the system's graphical capabilities at the time. It wasn't even supposed to be a real utility. It
Right.
was just look at fancy things flying around.
Which I like. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
seeing fancy things.
I mean, the only reason I even bring this up is to sort of shorthand all of the other quote unquote hacks that are seen on screen in the movie Hackers, or basically any other movie that features technology.
Mhm.
Whenever someone's typing furiously on a screen and you're wondering to yourself, how does whatever it is that they're doing actually work? Um, in 99.9% of cases, including this one, that's not how it works.
No. And hitting the enter key to start a program is almost never what you actually do.
Surely you're not forgetting about hitting F5 over and over and over again to increase the intensity of the hack.
Oh god, I love it.
That's a bonus one. I forgot to include that.
Yeah.
So, moving on though, because I don't want to just slam this thing all the time, because as fun as that is, it's not as fun.
Mhm.
I do want to take a moment to highlight what is actually possible, because some of the stuff in this movie is, was, and will continue to be completely possible.
Mhm.
Now, in the scene that I just mentioned, before the little hacker fight happened, Johnny Lee Miller's character had to get access to the TV station via a modem. Remember, 1995.
Yep.
He got the number for the modem that he called into by calling the front desk and razzle dazzling the front desk security guy with technobabble.
Yep.
Now, this is called social engineering, and it is by far the most successful kind of hacking that exists on the earth. Again, then, now, and in the future.
Mhm.
And actually, the movie has a ton of this.
Yeah.
There are a lot of examples of them doing what would be called social engineering. Some other examples include what is called shoulder surfing, where you flat out just watch somebody enter a password or a PIN. This one is unfortunately common around ATMs, so watch yourself.
Mhm.
But also pretending to be employees or contractors and just flat out walking into a quote unquote restricted building or an area of a building.
Wear some overalls and pretend like you're supposed to be there.
If you have a ladder or a checklist, you can walk straight into Fort Knox. I swear to God.
Clipboards, man. It's the golden ticket. And now for a brief message from our sponsor, Integra One. Our technology landscape is constantly evolving, and it's getting difficult to separate the hype from the reality. Is AI really the next big thing? Will WebAssembly change application deployments forever? Is the era of public cloud over? Or is it just getting started? I find the best way to discover the truth is by talking to other practitioners and hearing from folks who have their finger on the pulse of enterprise IT. And that is exactly what you'll find if you'll be able to connect with like-minded professionals, get one-on-one demos from technology experts, and attend over 60 interactive sessions. You might even get a keynote from me, Ned Bellavance, on the reality of AI in 2024. It's 2 days of learning, connecting, and growing with fellow IT professionals. If that sounds good to you, join me at the Wind Creek Casino on October 1st and 2nd for OneCon 2024. Now back to the show.
Kevin Mitnik, probably the only hacker anyone outside of IT has ever heard of, famously talked about how most of his success came more from social engineering than anything else.
Sure.
And I am not saying that to disparage his technical acumen at all. He did have the technical chops. He did. But if you look up the way that he talks about it, or if you read his It Could Have Used an Editor book,
True.
everything he does centers around and is essential to it is social engineering. And there's one quote that's worth sharing in full because I think it makes the point better than I could. Now, this was after his whole thing had been over. He was out of jail. He was now becoming sort of a security uh, apostle
Mhm.
in the wilderness, as it were. And he said, quote, "A company can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on firewalls, intrusion detection systems, encryption, and other security technologies. But if an attacker can call one trusted person within that company and that person complies and the attacker gets in, then all of the money spent on that technology is essentially wasted." And
Yep.
again, that was true then, That is true now. And it's funny because this actually reminds me of an XKCD comic where these bad guys have a guy tied to a chair and they say they're going to use a multi-million-dollar computer to crack his password. And the other guy says, what if I just hit him on the knee with this hammer?
Seems effective.
A little more brutal social engineering, but I think you get the idea.
Indeed.
Number 4, and this is going to be a bummer for a lot of people who think this idea is fun. The idea of skimming money off of every transaction and stealing it for yourself is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It's dumb here when the bad guys are doing it. It's dumb in Office Space where the good guys did it.
Morally ambiguous.
There we go. TLDR, it's dumb every time people talk about it.
Even in Superman 3.
Yeah. Now, it does, in its defense, have a cool name. It's referred to as salami slicing. It is. You can look it up. You actually can look it up.
I believe you.
In fact, there's a link in the show notes.
Sort of.
It talks all about it.
Whoa. Look
In
at
any
you,
event,
including links.
in case people aren't familiar, the idea is transactions on this scale, they don't divide evenly. You end up with fractions of a cent. You round them down in your favor, leaves you with a teeny tiny bit, and you put that money in a separate account. And then that just becomes your money, apparently.
Apparently.
Now, the myth of doing this in business actually goes back way further than I thought, at least as far as 1978, which is wild if you think about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had math in 1978. Now, the idea in practice is even older than that. In the old days, when we used actual gold and silver coins, people would what's called clip the coins. What you would do is you get a coin in a transaction and you get a real sharp knife or some way to slice it, and you take off the teeniest possible amount of that coin, like 0.5%, just
Right.
the teeniest little nibble. Small enough that whoever you give that coin to next doesn't notice that there's a piece missing. You do that enough times, now you have a pile of gold that you can get processed at the gold store. I don't know.
Goldsmith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that why coins are milled around the edge so that you can see if someone has cut it?
That is exactly why coins are milled. Back in
Wow.
the day, in the 1700s, that was not a thing that was possible. Therefore, always flat edges. Now, fast forward to now with our digital currency, and this is even less feasible. There are, in accounting, frankly speaking, too many checks and balances. And eventually, and probably extremely soonly, someone in accounting will notice that things don't add up. And I don't know how many accountants you know, but they get real upset if things don't add up.
Oh, yes.
That's actually one of the things in Office Space I think that is super realistic. If you remember, they do the scam, and it is the next day that accounting knows that there's, quote, a lot of money missing. Here's the thing. If there were 12 cents missing, the same shit would have happened.
True. Yeah. That is what accounting is there for.
Exactly.
To account for things.
And also, remember that other part where the money had to go into some other account?
Mm-hmm.
Well, believe you me, the banks know where those accounts are and who opened them.
They're kind of required to.
Yeah. They take that stuff real serious. Financial fraud, bad.
Unless you do it at a significant enough scale.
True.
Then you might be okay.
Next up, one of the claims in the movie that annoyed me and surprised me all at the same time. The movie claims that the most commonly used passwords were love, secret, sex, and God. Even in 1995, this list was absurd. Although not as absurd as I would have thought. And this little tidbit right here several hours of research because I have to remind you, 1995.
Yeah.
Now, as we all know, the modern list of popular embarrassing passwords that people still use for some godforsaken reason includes such gems as password and 123456, ostensibly because it's one more than 12345.
It's when we bumped up the character minimum to 6.
But according to an article published in Business Week back in 1997, the most commonly used passwords were, and these are not in any particular order, the user's first name, last name, or a child's name,
Mm-hmm.
the word secret, so they got one, stress-related words such as deadline or work,
Huh.
sports teams or sports terms, the word payday, the word bonkers.
Huh. That's random.
I meant to look into that and I decided to move along. And then we rounded out the list with the current season, the user's ethnic group, just flat out repeated characters like a capital A 10 times,
Mm-hmm.
or obscenities and obsexual terms. Being that this was Business Week, they did not go into detail. However, I think it was worse than just the word sex.
When I was working as a desktop admin and help desk, there was a gentleman whose name I won't repeat, but he was universally known as an office creep by the ladies and just generally despised by everyone. And I had to set up a new laptop for him. And so I asked him what his current password was,
Oh,
and
God.
it was superior. And I remember that to this day because I was like, of course it fucking is. What a douchebag you truly are.
Ah, that's magical.
Isn't it, though? You're welcome.
Now, even in 1997, Business Week knew that this shit was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I quote, "The main point to be made here is that users should avoid to use these types of passwords." Unquote. True then? True now. Now, these days, we did get away from relying exclusively on passwords, or at least have made passwords better. Think password managers, think MFA, think passwordless, etc., etc. But seriously, even back then, there was such a thing as password complexity requirements. The idea that something like the Gibson, A, would be externally facing, and B, would allow itself to have an administrator with the password that is 3 letters long called God, defies belief.
Bearing in mind that Penn and Teller were elite hackers in the movie. And you would think that elite hackers would know not to set a 3-letter password.
Precisely this. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I could put in 5A. The fact that they were accessing the Gibson on the open network is absurd. But, real computers like that are a lot more like Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
The first movie, the only one that's good. Shots
Ben's
fired.
fighting words. I've been triggered.
Okay. Let's get back to a couple of things that the hackery people do in this movie that are correct.
Okay.
There's a scene where the hackers sit in their somehow impossibly clean and smoke-free club with no adults anywhere.
They're supposed to be in high school, right? Yeah.
And what they do is talk about computer books and just kind of plop them on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one is a real book that anyone in computer science at the time would recognize. If you work, even you didn't have to be a hacker to have the Unix Bible, for example. Right. You just needed that shit to work. But again, it was kind of cool that they just threw those nods in to say, hey, yeah, we did pay attention. We know what books are.
Yeah.
They're not all that interesting, though. Like, nobody's going to go, ooh, when you drop the devil book on your table. I don't, that part was a little excessive. But anyway, it was a fun nod to the real world.
Yeah.
Something else, though. A lot of the phone stuff that is kind of done as little throwaway gags and also to show the character called Freaks bona fides. Completely accurate to the time. and would work. Like they didn't even like suss it up in a way to disguise it. That shit would have worked like just on the jump.
Yeah.
Stuff like recording the sound of a coin falling into the canister and playing it into the mouthpiece of a phone for certain payphones, you would now have a free phone call.
It's wild.
Also, at the time, we had a combination of push button dialing and pulse tone dialing, which is what a rotary phone does. So, what you could do is take the phone off the hook, hit the little hangy uppy thing at the right rate, at the right pace, and it would simulate a pulse dial. And on the right payphone, you would be able to call out any number you want.
Wow.
Now, there's more to it than this. There's a lot of things. You can read old stories of people who, with perfect pitch, could whistle into the phone and simulate the sounds of control characters.
Apparently, the whistle that came with a box of Captain Crunch made the exact correct pitch that
I
you
forgot
could
about that.
get the system to acknowledge, and you could make long distance phone calls for free.
Yeah. Now, they throw a lot of other language and they talk about things like red boxes and whatnot. They don't delve into it deeply, but in terms of technology, it's some of the most accurate stuff that they've got, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Why did this work? This worked because the phone system was created in the analog world and it was just not secure. Because the thinking went, who would be dishonest with the phone company?
Yeah. And in some cases, there was no good workaround. So even if the phone company was aware of what people were doing, they couldn't just change the signal tone for the control line. That was not a thing they could do. So it was like, I guess we just deal with it.
Right. Well, one of the things they tried to do is they put out a new line of payphones where the mouthpiece was not activated until the coin physically fell into the device. This, of course, caused the devices to be more expensive. Problematic.
Indeed.
Doing these kinds of phone manipulations was called phreaking. And unfortunately, it's gone more or less the way of payphones, which is to say, it's not really a thing anymore.
Right.
One throwaway line when the characters were all talking about Angelina Jolie's character's laptop that was funny to me, particularly considering the movie came out in 1995.
Yep.
And I quote, "RISC is going to change everything," immediately followed by, "RISC is good."
I love this.
And that's it. That's it. They're done talking about processors. But in 1995, Intel absolutely ruled the world of computing. x86 based CPUs were literally the non-Apple consumer's only option. And if you remember PowerPCs from 1995, I'm sorry.
I had one. And so when they said that RISC was going to change everything, I was like, I have a RISC processor in my desktop. And it was awful because it was OS 9.
Right. Yeah, there was a fall before the rise, as it were.
Indeed.
But anyway, 1995. This was the Pentium Pro days. CPUs running at a blazing 200 megahertz. Count them, Woo. Sir.
Woo!
Now, other things that were funny. AMD did exist. AMD released what they called the K5 at the time, and it was their very first effort competing against Intel using AMD designs and fabrication. It didn't go great. It didn't go bad. Didn't bankrupt the company. Obviously, they stuck around. AMD is basically the bee's knees these days. Whew, say that 4 times fast.
No, thank you.
Not 5. You'll get a headache. But yeah, in 1995, Intel was top of the heap and everybody knew it. But something else, this was not in the movie, but this was in 1995. The Cyrix processor.
Ooh.
Who remembers this besides me?
I do, and I don't know why.
So Cyrix was a company that spun off of Texas Instruments, who you might have heard of because if you're a person of a certain age, they definitely made your calculator in high school.
Yep.
They started their company's life making math coprocessors, which was a thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyrix had a lot of success with this, and they decided to take a shot at Intel as well. At first, they actually were doing okay. They released a 486 chip that was not as fast as its Intel counterpart, but it was significantly cheaper, like 2/3 less expensive.
Wow.
And for one shining moment, we all thought that Cyrix was going to happen. Even more than AMD, if I'm remembering correctly, which I'm probably not. Now, considering that you've definitely never heard of Cyrix, if you're not me or Ned, you probably already know that Cyrix didn't, in fact, happen.
Yeah.
It was a brief moment. Pentium came out, or Pentium Pro came out, I should say, and that was the end of that. Intel
Indeed.
took over for a solid 12 to 15 years. But link in the show notes if you want to check out some amazing computer ads from the 1990s. I don't know about the computers, but they definitely don't make the ads like they used to. But anyway, fast forward to now, and RISC chips are absolutely everywhere, including, once again, in Macs.
Yay!
Except they're
You
good
did
now.
it. Yeah. Much better.
RISC chips are used to drive your phone, and as we recently discussed, even Windows laptops are starting to ship with them. And apparently they do good.
They do. Still very
So
happy.
this is very funny to me that RISC is going to change everything was something that the movie was completely right about. Just, they were off by 30 odd years.
Indeed.
And, that might be the least fun fact of all. That 1995 was like
you don't need to keep
30
mentioning it.
years ago.
Oh, why? Why do you hate me so?
I really don't. I just can't. To quote the kids these days, I just can't. I just can't with this. I think that I need to go have a lie down and pretend that Jurassic Park is up for Oscars this year.
Hey, thanks for listening or something. I guess you found it worthwhile enough if you made it all the way to the end. So congratulations to you, friend. You accomplished something today. Now you can go sit on the couch, watch Johnny Lee Miller in Train Spotting. He's excellent. Don't inject any heroin into your body. And enjoy it. You've earned it.
Choose life.
Choose life. You can find more about the show by visiting our LinkedIn page. Just search Chaos Lever or go to our website, chaoslever.com, where you'll find show notes, blog posts, and general tomfoolery. We'll be back next week to see what fresh hell is upon us. Ta-ta for now.
Now I'm creating a new shared universe where Train Spotting is the sequel to Hackers.